I'm not as young as I used to be, which means I can't treat my body the way I once did. In fact, last year's medical checkup didn't turn out the best, so I decided I needed to change things up and start eating healthier. One of the ways I do that is by making smoothies. But smoothie shop prices can be pretty high, and making them at home always seemed like a pain. You gotta pull the blender out, find the right attachments, set everything up, and then cleaning everything is annoying, making it difficult to quickly whip up a breakfast smoothie in the morning. That's why I'm glad to tell you about the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Like I said, it's portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita on the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. BlendJet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. That's especially important to me because I wake up before the rest of my family, and once my kids are up, my morning work routine is pretty much shot to hell. And best of all, BlendJet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap and you're good to go. BlendJet 2 has over 30 plus colors and patterns to choose from, so if you don't like one design, there's definitely one that suits your personality. So what are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com and grab yours today. Be sure to use my promo code SuperCinemaPod12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of the BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. Blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2.
Will never end. Okay, I'll play. You know all the answers. Who are these friends of yours? No, not friends. They're more like phantoms who need to be put out of the misery. These were my cops here, following my orders when they died. I can't stand here listening to you go on pontificating. See, those men of mine came this close to dying for a reason. Then you let the girl go free. They died for nothing, all because you interfered. Let me live with that. These people are stealing your Crime Watch files. This is a virus uploaded into their computers. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm tired of this shit anyway. You want to put the mask on before we start? You'll just be wasting your time, my friend. It's pointless. You arrogant little prick!
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and probably the quickest turnaround for a returning guest outside of ones where we've actually recorded multiple episodes on the same day is Brad Mengel. Brad, how you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Like I said, it's only been a few days since we last recorded. I'm not sure if you've got anything new that's grabbing your interest in the past 2 days.
Well, actually, I've just been exploring an Australian comic book character called the Raven.
Okay.
He came out for 10 issues back in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s. So he's a fun character. He is a lord who's falsely accused of committing a crime, stealing some stuff, framed by his brother. He gets sent to jail, escapes from jail, and ends up adopting the disguise of the Raven and fighting crime.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of pitching a story to an Australian publisher.
Oh, nice.
Character. Yeah. So
is this a public domain character then?
No, it's licensed. So I know who has the license. They published a couple of news stories with the character. So I know them, and I know a couple of people who've worked for that company. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
And the other thing is, another thing is a new Phantom comic just came out here, and my likeness turned up in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that just a coincidence, or someone working on it?
I actually know the artist Paul Mason, and he. So I was just chatting to him one night, and he says, "You know what? I've got a character. I'm going to base him on you." And I went, "I will. I will take that." Yeah,
Awesome.
the character's name's Barry Mengel. He's a reporter. So I'm like, yep, I'll take that.
Very cool. Very cool. Anyway, so today we're just gonna jump into it because we don't have a whole lot of other stuff to
Yeah,
get out of the way first. But today
yeah,
we're talking about Black Mask, or Ha Cop is the original Chinese title. It's 1996 Hong Kong movie made by Jet Li, and
yep,
this was, I think this was like the first big movie that Jet Li had released in America. At least it's the first big one
yeah,
I remember, because he was
yeah,
in Lethal Weapon 4, and that was kind of like his introduction to American audiences. And then not
yep,
long after that, this one got a US release.
yeah, yeah. And I should have opened up at the start. I'm probably going to mangle every single Chinese word that I say in this podcast. So I'll just apologize for that in the start.
Fair
But
enough.
yeah. It's actually one thing that surprised me was it was actually based on a Chinese comic or manhua, I think they call
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's I'm not sure exactly the pronunciation, but manga is obviously the Japanese term.
Yeah,
And then there's manhwa, WHA, I think, for Korean manga.
yeah,
And then the Chinese one, it's like manhua or something like that.
yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking. I'm sitting there last night going, "There's no pronunciation guide for this."
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was
And
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they're basically Chinese language comics produced in China
yeah,
and Taiwan.
yeah. And yeah, there was only 6 issues from what I could find on the English language internet anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there's only 6 issues. You came out in 1992. And the guy who created it, Lee Shi Tak, is known as the godfather of indie comics in Hong Kong.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And he had like a big art exhibition in Hong Kong a couple of years back where he actually showed an unused Black Mask cover.
So, do you have any familiarity with the comics beyond just doing some research on it?
Yeah, there's like 4 interior pages on a couple of Twitter posts,
Hmm.
and the six covers. So yeah, I couldn't find like any information. Like it could be the most faithful adaptation, or it could be the 1944 Captain America one. Where everything's changed except for like the suit and the fact that he's called Captain America.
Right, right, right. Okay, yeah. So, what was your history with this movie?
I remember. I think I went to a music shop. We'd buy CDs and records back in the day. Ask your grandparents' kids, and I think I just saw the cover, and it was just this cover of a mask with like this corrugated look, and I was just like, "What is this?" And Jet Li, and I said, "Well, that'll do it." That was enough for me. I grabbed it, I bought it, I watched it, and I just had to remembering it being really, really, really brutal.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, and so I was a bit excited to watch it again because I enjoyed it the first time, but my wife doesn't share my fondness for brutal movies, so she was out last night, and, so I watched it.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember ads for this at the time when it came out. So like I remember that, and also the image on the US release, it comes
Mm,
from the climatic scene where they're
yeah,
fighting in the underground-ish tunnels. Can't remember exactly what it
yeah,
was, but there's
yeah,
like him like jumping and doing the splits against the wall. That was like the iconic poster that was on the US DVD cover, and
yeah,
also lots of US comic ads. They used that
mm,
back at the time. And
yeah. And the
so I'd
stupid
seen
part
this
is
around a lot.
yeah, but he
I'm
wasn't
sorry, say
even
that again.
wearing the mask. He wasn't even wearing the mask in that picture.
I
It's like,
was I was thinking the exact same thing last night. I'm like, well, he's not even wearing the mask in that. It's weird because it's such a big part of the movie. But
yeah,
so I thought that was it was an interesting choice to choose that as the advertising image, as opposed to,
uh,
like you said, the one on some of the international releases, they had the close up of the mask itself where
yeah,
it has that kind of corrugated look on to it. Um, but yeah, I didn't see it at the time, and in fact, I wasn't even I came a little bit late to being a fan of Jet Li. It wasn't like I'd seen him in, I think I'd seen him in Lethal Weapon 4, and
Mm.
but I was, there's so many people in that movie. It was,
Yeah.
even though he was good in
Yes.
it, it was tough to find like a standout type thing.
Yeah.
Mostly I just thought, oh, he's a pretty cool villain. But then
Yeah.
it was the I think it was Luke Besson who did a movie with him called Kiss of the Dragon, which came
Yep.
out probably like a year or two after this, like
Yeah.
97, 98 or something like that. And I remember seeing that in the theater, and that was amazing. Like after I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is actually really damn good.
Yeah.
Um, and then, since then I've seen him in a lot of other stuff, obviously. And I think he's also a better actor than, you'd probably expect from someone who's primarily a martial artist. Like you see him in
Yeah.
that first Expendables movie. He's got a
Yep.
great talent for humor in that. Like some of the funniest lines in that movie are from him when he's talking about why he needs to get a raise and everything.
Yeah. Well, the other one I thought was funny was he did one with Jackie Chan, Forbidden
Oh,
Kingdom.
the Forbidden Kingdom. Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't like that, but I thought it was very entertaining.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. But it was sort of this bit of a shock. Like, hang on, you got Jet Li playing the Monkey King
Mm-hmm.
and not Jackie Chan. That sort of was a bit of a disconnect. But he did a really good job. So it's just one of those things you're going, Jackie Chan, like, why aren't you putting
Mm-hmm.
him in there?
Yeah. Also, there
Yeah.
was War, the movie he did with Jason Statham, which
Mm.
again I know a lot of people didn't really like it, but I thought it was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
Um, and so I when I'd eventually found this, it was
Mm.
like years later, like maybe like
Yeah.
10 years later at least, and I found it in a used DVD shop and picked it up and watched it. Um and unfortunately I didn't realize this when I picked it up at the time, but there are multiple versions of this movie. And
Yes.
so which version did you which were I should probably say which versions have you watched of this movie?
Well, just the one I own, which is from my research, the Hong Kong version, I think.
Okay.
Sort of watching, looking at the scene descriptions, like the cat, his Jet Li's character's name is, where am I?
Sweet
Chu
Chick or
Chu
something like that.
Chu Chick, yeah. Because I've got Chu Hark down, and I'm thinking, no, that's not right. That's the producer.
Right, right.
Yeah, but Chu Chick. So that sort of led me to think it's the Hong Kong version. And then there was a couple of scenes, like there's a few scenes that are slightly longer in each version.
Mhm.
And looks from what I read that it was the Hong Kong version, which
Okay.
makes sense because we're fairly close to Hong Kong.
Right. So yours was also the one that was in Cantonese then, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but it was dubbed into English, so
Oh, so you did have a dubbed version.
I had a dub version. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting because the US release, they did a few weird things with it. First off, they did an English dub on it, which was
Mm.
I'll talk about the dub. The dub is terrible. It's just god awful voice acting on it. I mean, it's very much like the kind of bad dubs on the old Bruce Lee movies. It's just
Yes.
yeah, it's so bad. You could tell they weren't even trying with it. Um
Mm.
it's also the US version is also missing about 10 minutes were
Yeah.
cut out of it, and the opening sequence and the credits were edited a little bit or replaced in some cases. And so yeah, so there's they also not only did they replace the dialogue, but the US also did this very weird thing where they replaced the entire soundtrack in the movie. So
Yeah.
it's not any of the original music used in the Hong Kong version, but instead they replaced it with this very weird hip hop soundtrack. And it's very disjointed. It completely breaks up the flow of the movie. They've got these weird record scratches in odd places, and it's just the whole thing it's just a very bizarre experience watching it. And it's very distracting too. Like I'm not sure why they did that. Because again, I'm not sure when this movie came out in the US, but I know he was in Romeo Must Die, and I know Romeo Must Die was a little bit more hip hop influenced, and plus,
Yeah. Well, I think it was about 99 from what I've read that it came out. The
okay,
US edition came out. Yeah.
that sounds. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% certain on the dates, but that sounds about the same time as when Romeo Must Die, I believe. So that would make sense because that was the one he did with Aaliyah. I think that was her last movie.
Yeah.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. Not that wasn't her last movie. It was
No, it was
Queen
the
of the Damned.
vampire
It
one.
was
Yeah.
Queen of the Damned. That was her last one. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it was just very disjointed. And well,
Yeah.
let's talk about it. How did you feel rewatching this movie last night? What were some things that kind of jumped out at you?
Um, well, I liked one of the things that jumped out to me was uh what they did to make him a super soldier was effectively they uh disconnected all his nerves, his
Mm-hmm.
nervous system, very much similar to Darkman.
I was gonna say the
So
same thing. Yeah.
yeah, so in my mental headcanon, it's in the same universe as Darkman. But they also did like they sort of went, oh yeah, all these guys went crazy with the emotions, so we'll remove their emotions as well. But yeah, I said the 701 Squadron was it was a really there was an I like that idea of there's this whole rogue faction, and the one
Mhm.
guy who said no I'm not going to do that. But I did notice that a lot of the characters seem to pick up the idiot ball really quickly. Like
Yeah.
like the last drug lord in all of Hong Kong. Yeah, this goes, the submissive just totally turned up. What could possibly go wrong? And I'm under attack, so I'm going to have sex with her because that's what you do.
Yeah. But also another thing I thought was weird about that whole plot, because there's the whole reason that the 701 Squadron is going after these drug lords, and they're trying to get all this information to hold these crime watch files for ransom.
Mm.
I mean, it's like the whole thing is they're dying and they want the government to give them a cure. So I mean, it's like if I'm in the government, just kind of like, well, just fucking wait it out.
Yeah. Well, that actually wasn't part of the Hong Kong plot. It was just like,
Oh,
we're
really?
totally
Okay.
just It was just like, hey, we're gonna just take over Hong Kong and deal with get money, tons of money out of the Colombians and just run the drugs.
Which
Uh,
makes I don't know why they made that change then. That doesn't make
yeah,
any sense, because that
yeah,
that makes so much more sense.
yeah, yeah. It was just like, yeah. That's and I think they also changed the origin for how they got their invulnerability. It was like a super soldier serum or something from memory.
Yeah, it was some sort of like super soldier type product.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it just says that there was it was this extortion thing they're trying to do. But again, I don't know why they put that into the US
Mhm.
version then, if that wasn't in the original, because
No,
that just doesn't make any sense.
no, not,
Um,
yeah. Like I said, give us a cure because we're going to die in 6 months. Well,
yeah, just fucking wait that.
yeah, yeah. And I think what's the other one? Oh, yeah, they're at the hospital. An ambulance just pulls up and they go, oh yeah, there's a guy who's had an accident. It's like, why isn't the hospital closed if you've got it, locked down
Mhm.
and secure? And you just go, sorry guys, you've got to go to another hospital. Don't care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. There's a lot of like weird logic things in this movie. And I it's hard for me to judge the performances because
mm,
again, I'm watching the US version, which has this
mm,
incredibly awful dub. And it's like,
mm,
I mean, I understand wanting to do a dub, but there's a good
mm.
way and a bad way to do it. Like if you look
Yeah.
at some of the like the Studio Ghibli films, when they dub
Yeah.
those into English, they get some really good dubs. They get some like, high caliber actors to come in and read those lines and to
Mm,
really kind of, commit to it. And just like this, it's like it's like I don't even know if they hired real voice actors. It's
mm.
like they hired like homeless people off the streets and for an exchange for a sandwich or something, because it's just so bad. It is the worst reading I have ever heard in a movie.
Oh, that's bad. The Hong Kong the Hong Kong English dub is really good. I enjoyed, and I'm not sure if like everyone involved spoke English and they did their own lines, or
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't see any of the credits where like they said English dub by blah blah blah.
Right.
Uh, yeah, they also didn't credit. The other thing I noticed is they didn't credit the comic. The
Oh, really? I didn't know. I didn't
Yeah,
notice that.
yeah. I was sort of watching those end credits, and I went, hang on, they didn't mention the comic. Maybe they did it in the opening credits. And I went back and rewatched those, and I'm going, no. But But it was a nice touch. They said, they said in 1992 this experiment was done, and that's when the comic came out. So I was like, that's a nice touch. I realized, but yeah, no mention of the comics whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm looking at so some of these names actually kind of look a little familiar, like Corey Burton. I know I've heard his name before.
Yeah.
John DiMaggio. So I don't know what the hell was going on with this. I think it was just like maybe it was a rush production or something, but it's just very, very bad acting in this.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen the American version, and I'm a little scared too, but a little part of me wants to see it now. Yeah.
I mean, even Tara Strong did a voice. Apparently, it doesn't. It just says voice, doesn't say who she did, but she had apparently did a voice of someone.
Well, you've only got a 50-50 shot because there's only 2 women in this movie.
Well, I think no, the other ones I think they have different voices. Like Tracy has a different voice actress credited.
Right.
I'm not sure if might have been Kaylin then. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Another thing that they do in the English dub is they change some of the names around.
Yeah.
So in the case of Sui Chick, Jet Li's character, his real name is Michael, and then the name he uses as like his alias when he's working at the library is Simon.
Yeah,
and also
when he started in the other version, he's teacher, just known as teacher, and then becomes Choi Chick when he's working in the library.
Okay. And I'm not sure if the inspector, right? He's called Rock in the English dub. I'm not sure if that's also a nickname they use in the original.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So Rock Shen, I think his name is.
Rock Shek Wai Ho. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So so he was kind of, I liked him as a character. Yeah, he was that sort of
he was
tough,
good.
Yeah, he was that rough,
he was entertaining, yeah.
Yeah. That rough, tough cop, like, yeah, just let them go to war, kill each other. I don't care. And he was that tough guy. He liked to fight.
But yeah, this, and the action too, like the fight scenes are great. I think that's the best thing about this movie is these fight scenes. They're
fantastic.
Very well done. Yes. Yeah. But one of the things that really annoyed me is this director, Daniel Lee, is just very incompetent behind the camera. Because I don't know if he had gotten someone different to do the fight scenes or if he just knows how to shoot fight scenes. But when it came to everything that wasn't a fight scene, it felt like it felt like this is the first time he'd ever looked at a camera, because it's just he's tilting it, he's using handheld shots in places where it doesn't make sense. He's using these weird trackings and angles, and it was just it almost felt like a student film in some cases, watching some of these scenes.
Yeah, I had looked at what he hasn't done a great deal. He only, this is about the 7th film he'd made. So
I mean, after 7 films, you think you'd at least know how to shoot a dialogue scene. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, so there's that weird bit when they were getting what's the name? I can't think of her name. The member of the 701 squad out of jail. It's like, no, she's just totally tried to kill this drug lord, but we're going to let her go. It's all good. But they've got the dove flying, and I'm like, what is this? A John Woo film?
I wonder. I caught that too. I wondered if that was supposed to be a John Woo reference or something.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on here? It's just like, I'm just randomly releasing a couple of doves, and like, no, that doesn't make sense.
That too was another example of just like these weird choices they make in this movie. Like they have, I mean, I'll just call him Jet Li's character because it's easier than constantly remembering what his name is supposed to be. But he goes up to Rock and he's like, "Oh, that woman you've got in custody, she's my friend, and I want to help her. Can I talk to her?" It's just like, in what I don't care how good friends you are with the cop. In what universe would you just release a suspect like that? Yeah,
that was I thought it was a bit weird. Like, you go, all right, come on in. You can go talk to her in the prison cell, but it's like, oh yeah, we don't believe that she had anything to do with it. And like, really? But it's, like I said, the idiot ball had to get handed over a few times to make the plot happen.
Well, also when they when the commissioner accuses Rock of being the Black Mask too, I'm like, Rock was there at the scene. Why do you think he? It doesn't make any sense. Why? I mean, someone would have noticed that he was gone at that that situation.
Yeah, it's just that bit at the end. He goes, "Oh, I'm just going to put on the hat and flail my coat around." And like, okay, that looks cool as all get out, but why would you do that?
Yeah. What were some other things that jumped out at you?
Yeah, well, definitely the fight scenes. Although, but I noticed that there was a lot of cutting and editing, where I would have preferred, Jet Li's a competent fighter. I'm not sure about, the rest of the characters, the rest of the actors, but it's like, just film the action. Just let me watch it. Don't cut it 20,000. Don't give me 20,000 cuts for each punch and each blow. But having said that, sometimes you had that bit where they cut off some guy's arm with a bit of glass, and you're just like, dude, how did you do that? And the guy just keeps coming because he doesn't feel it, he doesn't care. So that was like I said, I do remember the fight scenes being brutal. People on fire and they just keep fighting and just like, oh, this is great. And that part makes sense. But yeah, there was, like I said, the idiot ball came out a few too many times for my liking, and all this weird thing. But I did like the scene at the start where they've gone to the toilet, they've gone to the loo, and the guys are bailing up Jet Li, and he knows Rock's in the toilet, and Rock comes out, and you just see this grin on his face, is like, oh, you guys, you don't know what you're in for.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great scene, and it also goes, especially when after Rock leaves at the end, and then one of the guys gets up and he tries to go after Jet Li, and then Jet Li just gives him the smackdown really quickly. Now that was one of the changes. I think a lot of the US stuff, I think a lot of that 10 minutes was violence, actually was edited down, because I see like a splatter of blood in that scene, but they don't show like anything very graphic.
Yeah, I think it was a great deal of that. One of the scenes I thought might have been cut was he knocks some guy onto a bit later on. He knocks a guy onto some rebar and bends the rebar over his shoulders. So he comes out sort of through his chest and up over under his shoulder blades, and Jet Li just sort of bends it over his shoulders, and the guy then stands up, and you're just going, "Oh my God, that would hurt so much."
Yeah.
But yeah, and he ends up getting trampled to death. Trampled, and his spine's broken. And the leader of the 701s just goes, "Hey, his spine's broken. Drain all his blood. We'll be right." And kill him. And he goes, "It was an honor to serve." And I'm like, dude, he's just sentenced you to death.
Yeah, there's also some other things. So in the Hong Kong Taiwanese versions, here's some of the stuff that's extended in there. So there's extended dialogue between Tracy and the other library staff when they're talking about what she would do with Jet Li.
Yes.
There is the scene with King Kao and with a woman. It doesn't say Kaylin. He watches her dance, proceeds to have sex, and then excitedly shoots her with a water gun and smashes a light.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
So yeah, that was probably not in your version then, I guess.
Yeah.
King Kao saluting Inspector Shek. A member of the 701 squad impaling himself on metal sticks and spitting blood.
Oh yeah, that was in it.
Yeah. Shots of bullet impacting when Black Mask shoots the 701 thugs to save Tracy. Shot of bullet hitting the arm of a thug.
Yeah.
A 701 thug grabs two cops' arms and breaks them in the hospital sequence.
Oh, yes.
A thug smashes a cop's head with his hands. More footage of thug getting shot by police. Yeklan's shoulder being shot with blood shooting out. That's Kaylin's character, if you're wondering from the English dub. Some more bullet hits on masked cops. Rock removes a severed thug's arm that had been clutching onto his shoulder. That one, I think I saw. That one I remember seeing that because he's like passing off and he's like I'm gonna get a drink, and the other guy's like I'm gonna go with you. Black Mask bleeding after being stabbed. Some more footage of Tracy getting a blood bag, and
Yep.
shot of black mass blood after being stabbed with a pipe tube.
Yeah.
And also it says both of them maintained the green tinting of the film. So I'm guessing there was like kind of a green tint on a lot of it. I'm not sure.
There was a little bit of a tint now that I think about
Okay,
it.
so that's
Yeah.
probably what.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
had a question. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
let me just say the English version.
Yeah.
Yeah, they trimmed a lot of the non-action scenes, and I know. So the Artisan and the BMG version, they have all the same gory content. So I guess all the violent stuff is in there.
Yeah.
But they also have some scenes that weren't in any other version. So there's one where Jet Li is looking for Rock. So I guess that's at the beginning when he's going to when he like goes to the police station, then he goes to the hospital. I think that's what we're talking about there.
Yeah.
A few shots of Black Mass hideout and Rock advising Kaylin to find Jet Li.
No. Yeah, no, that last part wasn't in my scene from what I remember.
Okay.
Mm.
So you said you had a question?
Yeah, so in the final scene, they're taking a photo of the three of them. And it comes out like they're all in their civilian clothes, and it comes out they're all in their superhero costumes. Jet Li's as the Black Mask, and the other two are in black coats and looking very much like the Matrix. Was that in your version, or did they change that?
There was kind of a picture, I think, but I don't remember them wearing masks. So maybe I'm missing something there.
Yeah, it's like literally. Yeah, they take the photo. It's a Polaroid. They hold it up, and as it develops, you see them wearing their costumes, and you're like, and they're just saying, "What?" Because
no, I don't think that was in. I don't think that was in my version.
Yeah, it sort of hinted at, hey, we could do a sequel with these guys, and I was like, yes, please.
Which is funny because they did do a sequel, and then apparently that wasn't those guys.
Yeah, no. They got Andy On, who, from what I can gather, didn't know anything about martial arts. I'm sort of like, why would you do that? It's the same. It's the same as getting the guy for Iron Fist and just going, "Do you know any martial arts? No, you'll be fine. Just go in and make it." And like, why would you do that?
So you saw the second one then?
I have seen it. I saw it many years ago.
Okay.
I haven't watched it recently. I do recall I may have fallen asleep during it.
Well, I mean,
it felt very, very Americanized. They had a pro wrestling subplot. There was some genetic engineering that went on. You had like Tobin Bell and Scott Adkins and Rob Van Dam. So that was, I do have to rewatch it. And then there was there was a movie that was intended to be a prequel but got changed at the last minute. What's it called? Shadow Mask. That came out in, I think it was 2001. It's on Tubi, and it's only subtitled.
Okay.
So I haven't quite gotten to the point where I've been ready to sit there for an hour and a half and read the subtitles. So, but it looks quite good. So, I sort of count it as the unofficial third movie. And I think it's on YouTube. Someone's posted it on YouTube without subtitles, and they literally call it Black Mask 3.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That doesn't say anything about that one in here, but it does. This one has a lot of American actors in it, and it was actually looks like it was written by Americans. So you've got Tobin Bell, Tyler Mane, Scott Adkins, Tracy Lords, even John Polito is in it too.
Yeah.
Rob Van Dam, as you mentioned. And it says it's the same character, but he's got a different name.
Yeah.
So, like, his name is Kan Fung, and it also says he's being tracked by his creator, a giant brain, which is completely at odds with the first. First
and then some, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why they say this is the same guy when it seems like it's just a different guy, but who's from the same program.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They really went for that Kato look, which I dug. I think that was another thing that drew me to it. Is like, wow, they really went the Kato look, which they never referenced in the Hong Kong version, but I hear they did in the American version.
It references in the American version because it was, I believe that was the intent, right? It was specifically based on Kato, because he says in it in the scene when Tracy's when they're having dinner and they're watching the news and they're talking about Black Mask, and one of the one of the girls says she looks he reminds her of Kato. My son's getting
Yeah.
fussy here.
Uh,
Okay, sorry about any technical difficulties and background noise, people. My son is very noisy today. But anyway, he's moved him aside to a little bit, so he should be okay now. Anyway, we were saying about the Kato thing, and in that scene, Tracy then says to Black Mask, she says, she's right. You do look a lot like Kato. She calls it a retro look. And that's all we get about it. But that there is that little reference, and I'm kind of surprised that they had cut that out of the. Well, I'm not really surprised because there could be. I'm not 100% sure if this is the reason why, but it could be related to the fact that just like anti-Japanese sentiment and Kato. Well, there have been so many different versions of Kato, but in some version, I think the original version was supposed to be Japanese, and I believe Bruce Lee's version was also supposed to be Japanese, if I'm not mistaken. So it might be connected.
I thought he was Chinese.
Well, I know the character. I'm not sure. I know the character was changed. He was changed. He's been changed in a few different ways, right? I know that in the I think it was the original one, the original radio show, he was Japanese, but then it was changed various times. I think during the radio show it was actually changed after the war started, and they changed it to Chinese at that point. And then
I heard Filipino.
Filipino was another change they had made at one point as well. And I'm not I'm looking it up right now, but if I'm not mistaken, I think he was supposed to be Japanese in the TV show. But I'm not 100% sure.
But, all Asians look alike, don't they?
Jesus, don't even get me started on that. Okay, so we got this. We had paused so we could look this up and just double check stuff. So, I'm talking about, this is a big digression from what this is but it's not connected to Black Mask at all. But this, according to Snopes, Kato was originally portrayed as of Japanese descent during the first 2 years of the radio program, and then 2 years later, this is before Pearl Harbor. And urban legend says it was because of the Pearl Harbor attack, but it was actually before that, and it's due to Japan's political situation. References to his Japanese background was eliminated, and he just became Asian, but wasn't specified where in Asia. And then a few months before the U.S. Entered World War II, he was described as being Filipino. But then in the 1940 film serial, he was Korean, and in the 1960s TV show, you were right, he was, when he was played by Bruce Lee, he was referred to as Chinese. And then I think in the movie, he may have been either Chinese or Korean.
It's Chinese from memory, but it's been a little while since I've watched that one.
Yes, you're right. Kate, and in the film, he says that he was born in Shanghai. So and then Reed replies, and then Britt Reed replies saying that he loves Japan. But yeah, so that was the Kato connection, and I thought that was a cool look to use for him here. I wonder if the Chinese version removed those references because of anti-Japanese sentiment, and they didn't want any connection to that. But I'm not sure 100%. That's just a theory I have that it could be.
I wouldn't have thought so, because everyone loves Bruce Lee, in China and Hong Kong. So but I think it was just so obvious that he was doing Kato that I don't think they needed to say it. Whereas, for American audience, you might just need to go, look, we're doing Kato, just deal with it.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because this came out in '96, so it'd been a long time since Green Hornet, and the Green Hornet movie TV show had only lasted for a year anyway. So he wasn't as as much of the cultural zeitgeist as Batman '66 or anything like that. Yeah, so that could be it too, like just as a way to remind the U.S. audiences of what the references were. Which is funny because even me as a kid, and I had never seen Green Hornet, but I'd heard about it. So like when I saw his look, first thing I thought was Kato.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another movie came out in 2010, Legend of the Fist, The Return of Chen Zhen, which is a sequel to uh, Fist of Fury.
Hmm.
And basically, it has Chen Zhen returning to um, I forget where he was returning home after World War One, and basically just putting on a Kato costume and fighting,
Okay.
gangsters. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. I think they had sort of had like, oh yeah, here's a costume in the window for a movie serial we're showing in the
Mhm.
1920s. 15 years before the Green Hornet was invented, it was created. So, um, but that was a fun movie. I enjoyed that. It's almost like, how do we make a Green Hornet movie without making a Green Hornet movie and not, it's sort of like, all these Batman shows. How do we make a Batman show but don't have Batman in it?
Yeah. So another weird thing about this movie was I'm not sure why they did this, but they used these weird CGI bullets in some of the scenes at the end there, and that was another thing that just took me completely out of the movie. It felt so unnecessary.
Mm. I sort of just figured there was some sort of high tech ultrasonic bullet things because they had laser beams. So that they had some sort of advanced tech in the distant year of 1997.
Mm-hmm.
I think the leader of the 701 goes, it's 1997. And I go, beauty, there's my timeline. Um, yeah, so yeah, I just assumed that there was some sort of science fiction ultrasonic sort of bullet things. And I just went, yeah, okay, I'll go with that. That
Okay.
go straight through rock and everything.
See, I didn't pick up on that. I just thought they were just regular bullets, but it was just really bad CGI rendering on them. Because
Yeah.
they're also never mentioned or anything like that too. Like there's no sort of
Mm.
mention about it, so that's why I assume they're just regular bullets.
Well, I could be wrong, but that was the only bullet, like those bullets that he was shooting were the only ones that were doing that. So yeah, that's probably the writer in my brain that just went,
Mhm.
oh, that's what that is, and roll with it. Whereas I just make up the story and then, which is probably a far more effort than they put into some of these
Yeah.
shows put into things. You just go, yeah, that's what it is.
Oh yeah. There's some very low effort stuff in a lot of this. Like we are saying with the script in a lot of places. The direction is just very bad, and I don't want to criticize the acting too much because again, I don't know how different their performances would
Mm.
be if I could hear the original Chinese dialogue.
Yeah.
Now you've watched a dub as well. Have you seen the original Chinese dialogue?
No, no, I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious how it would compare because I know I have had instances where I've seen the dub and then compared it to the original. I'm like, oh my god, this is so much better. This
Yeah.
just like and not in ways you think. Like it's just like it's like a completely different movie. Is how far superior it
Yeah.
is with the original. Um, so yeah, I'm curious how this would compare to the original.
Yeah.
And if that would change my opinion because I know, like I said, Jet Li's
Mm.
I mean, he's no Marlon Brando or anything like that, but
Yeah.
he's a decent enough actor for especially for a movie like this. Like he
Yes.
could
Yeah.
definitely sell this kind of character. I've seen him sell more complex characters than this. So
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Also, I do wonder like how much editing they did with the dubs as well.
mhm.
Whether they
Well,
just
yeah, I
cut
mean,
things.
like with that story beat, right? That
Yeah.
was something that was just completely obviously, like you said, I thought that was just part of the story, but apparently they had done some editing on the script as well. In
Mm.
addition, not only translated it, but changing some story elements.
Yeah.
And it just I don't know why they did that. I wonder if it doesn't even it I can't think of any reason why it makes sense. It's not like it's a situation where this didn't make sense in the original or it didn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to American audiences, right? It's not that kind of
Yeah.
an edit. It's just a very bizarre choice that makes the movie less logical.
Yes, and yeah, that's what we need. Less logic.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what do you think of some of the other characters in here? So we have Tracy as the kind of the main love interest in this. What do you
Yeah.
think of her?
Yeah, it was sort of this weird, almost. She's like she starts off and the she's going, oh, she's crying because she's always crying because she's always getting her heart broken.
Hmm.
And the boss goes, "What you need is a down to earth guy." And she goes, "Like you?" And he's going, "No, no, totally wasn't suggesting me." But and one of the other guys goes, "But I'd be up for something casual if that's what you're after." And they said, "But what about Jet Li over there?" And I think that's where she sort of starts thinking about him in that way. Um, and then there's a scene later on where Rock turns up to see Jet Li in the library, and they're going, "Oh well, maybe he's just gay. You've been beaten out by the Rock." And she throws a book at the Rock.
That was such a bizarre scene. I'm like, what? And she's like, I can't take it anymore. I'm like, can't take what? What the hell happened?
And she's like, "Yeah, I'm like, why are you throwing the book at him? Like, if they're gay, there's not much you can do about it."
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's this kind of like love starved or like love crazy trope in a lot of Hong Kong movies, and I think that's what that was supposed to be. But
Yeah.
it's just it even back then it didn't age well. Now it ages even worse. It's just really bad.
I know, and the Rock turns around and sort of sees who it is and
He like
doesn't quite.
flips her over. Yeah.
Yeah, flips it over. Like he's ready to belt. Someone comes up and attacks you like that, you're going to turn around and belt them one. And yeah, so he's like, "Don't do that."
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So she was, yeah, and then she sort of got into this whole Stockholm syndrome thing, like, "Oh yes, I'm keeping you here for your own protection by chaining you up and not even giving you a toilet." Like,
Hmm.
oh, dude. And it's like, oh yes, neither of them can cook.
Yeah.
Uh, I would imagine that maybe he can't taste anything, so
Oh, that's a good point. I never even thought about that. But yeah, if his
yeah.
other nerves are, if he can't feel pain, and it stands to reason that he probably can't really taste anything either.
Yeah, so I was just like, yeah, I'm just eating this. She just goes, "Nope, this is no good. I'll
Mm.
cook," and then she can't cook, and
And I
yeah,
did like that they kind of subverted that whole thing because when she's and it's been years since I've seen this movie, so I can't remember what my
yeah.
original reaction was. But when she said that, I'll cook for you, and then it cuts the scene of like her chopping all the vegetables and stuff. I'm like, oh come on, this is ridiculous. And then it shows that she actually doesn't know what she's doing. And I'm like, okay, that's a little bit better. I can kind of go with
Yeah,
this now.
yeah. I think he sort of got. I think he because he knew who she was
Mhm.
in his real identity. Yeah, he basically goes, "Yeah, look, she can't cook. I'll just go get some takeout while she's
Yeah.
fussing around in the kitchen." And that was the other thing I thought was interesting. They're sitting there having dinner, and she goes, "Oh, Georgie," and he's going, she sussed it out. And she's going, "No, I wonder what happened to him."
Hmm.
And they sort of did the reverse of that whole, Lois and Clark Superman triangle. It's like, no, no, I like the ordinary guy.
Hmm.
I'm just a little bit freaked out by you.
Hmm.
And she's going, yeah. And then she calls him a nerd, and when he unmasks, and she's like, oh, oh, yeah. I was just kidding about that, calling you a nerd. Yeah. But
um.
yeah, she actually ended up being slightly more competent than I thought she was going to be.
Hmm. And how about Kaylin or Yeklan, or I'm not sure
Yeah.
if I'm pronouncing that correctly. What
Ah,
do you think of her character?
I thought she was really cool. And she did a lot of the, I'm going to jump out of here and I'm going to sweep my cape out, and uh, yeah, and she sort of, but she comes up and shoots everyone, and Rock goes, "Ha, I outsmarted you." But yeah, she sort of was that token femme fatale who
Mm.
comes in, looks good, and kills you. Uh, and it was nice to see the Rock sort of going, "Yeah, look, I'm not going to fall for that. I'm
Mm.
going to set up some dummies." Um, but she wasn't, like getting away might be her weak spot there. Just like,
Mm.
yeah, I think she got captured about 3 times. It's like, no. uh,
But I
yeah,
think the I mean, at least again, just judging off of what I've had to see in the with the bad dub. I mean, I think really Ching Wan Lao, who played The Rock, I think he was probably the standout performance of the bunch.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah, he had that I'm a hard-boiled, grizzled cop
Mm-hmm.
thing happening, and probably did a lot better than what we saw in Black Scorpion a couple of weeks.
Oh
Yeah,
God, yeah, that was
last week,
awful.
yeah.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, but he was sort of like, yeah, but I just love the fact, oh yes, there's a guy with a bomb in him. Come on, Inspector, you can join the bomb squad for now. And it's like, you got like 20 bomb techs and you're getting him to do it,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was a bit weird. But I think, I can imagine him being, I'm not leaving. I'm just going to stand here. And, but yeah, everyone's sort of like, yeah, we're just going to stand around and let the inspector do it.
That was another thing too. It was just like his both and again, this could be a weakness of the dub. I'm not sure how well it was in other versions, but it's just that's another example of just like the writing not quite living up to what this movie could have been with,
Mm.
you know, Suchik has all these little things he knows. Like he knows about the bomb. He calls you up while you're in the middle of it, and he says, "No, that you can't do that with that bomb." And then he says, "Oh, I read about it after when I heard about the bomb. I went and I did some research." And I'm like, I mean, like, if Rock is any sort of even like a bad detective, he should be able to figure out that timeline does not make any sense. Like, he should have more questions about that.
Yeah, it's like, how did you get the number? It's like, well, it was the hospital. Yeah, you just ring the hospital number and they'll put you through.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm the commissioner. And like the cops are going, don't know what the commissioner's voice sounds like,
That's a
So,
good
yeah,
point. Yeah,
just...
he says he's like, oh, it's the commissioner who did this. It's like, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Like you'd think they'd know what the commissioner sounds like, or at the very least, they'd probably try and confirm it's him or something.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of very inept cops.
Mm-hmm. Very inept cops, and just like the story is just not very good. It doesn't fit together the way it should. It's a nice concept, like the whole idea of this, this super soldier who's trying to, atone for his past and trying to take out this group of his former team, like who've gone rogue. That's all really cool and good. I like that'd be very interesting, and it's a concept that you can do a lot with, but it's just not very well executed in this.
No.
Like the again, the action is great. Like if you're gonna watch this movie, I would first off, I'd say don't watch the US release because I don't know what they were thinking with either that dub or the really terrible hip hop soundtrack. But I would say definitely track down the Hong Kong version and watch that one. And watch with the original dialogue. But more than that, I would say I mean, just some of these scenes are just shot so incompetently that I would say probably better off to just find a supercut on YouTube of like all the action scenes and watch that.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of them out there because I sort of had a bit of a sticky to see if there was sort of any commentary or anything that I missed, but no. But yeah, it's like here's the best action scene, and there's 20 different possible scenes you could be watching.
Yeah. Or if you want a good Jet Li movie when he was kind of at his physical prime, and you want it in English, I'd say go with Kiss of the Dragon because that was a solid film.
Was that the one where he kicked the ball in the pool table?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
So good.
That, and you had I can't remember his name now, but he was also in La Femme Nikita. He's been in a lot of Luc Besson's films, but the French actor who plays the villain in that, he was just
Jean Reno?
Not Jean Reno, no, it was a different guy. I'll have to look him up later. But he was amazing in that too. And you have the Bridget Fonda stuff you could do without, but but the movie itself was very entertaining.
No. Yeah, I do remember that that's definitely that cue ball kick that just that did it for me. It's like that's so good.
Yeah.
I have a philosophy. It's like if you look at something and you go, that's crazy. There's too much.
It was I looked up the name. It was Checky Cario. He plays the villain in it.
Yes. Yeah. But I have a philosophy. You watch something and you go, that's crazy. There should only be two responses. That's awesome and I want to watch it, or that's absolutely ridiculous and I refuse to watch it. And
Yeah.
90% of the time, I'm the one going, that's not probably 99% of the time, I'm just going, that's awesome. I want to watch this. And my
Mhm.
wife's just going, my wife and daughter are just going, no, I am not watching this. I'm not watching this thing where, this guy's just, doing all these crazy things. And it's like, ah, which is why I went and saw Cocaine Bear with a friend.
We had another guest on recently who talked about Cocaine Bear, and he said it was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
checking that out when
Oh,
I'm not even
yeah.
sure if it's out here yet, but I'll have to check it out when it comes out here.
Oh, yeah. It's
Um,
definitely crazy. Yeah, it's like
um,
inspired by a true story. Yeah, once the movie starts, that's when the true story stops, basically.
there are other things you wanted to mention about Black Mask.
Let me have a look here. I've got a few notes. Looks like I've covered most of it. Like I noticed they really prominently put in that Sue Hark was who directed Double Team. Was the producer, and it's like I don't think I can even see the director's name on the cover. That's how small they put Daniel Lee's name. So I do wonder if he may have directed some of those action scenes.
I doubt it, but I think it's just because Sue Hark is a bigger name in the West, so that's
It
probably
was sort
why
of like
he's.
it's sort of like those movies that came out a few years ago. Quentin Tarantino presents.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Directed by
That
some
was
guy you've never heard of.
right. That was when I think it started with, it might have been Hero that started that up when Quentin Tarantino was trying to get it distributed, and the studio said, "We'll distribute it, but only if you can put your name on it." And he's like, "Fine, go ahead and put my name on it." And but Sui Hark, he's pretty well known. A lot of his stuff has made it out here to the West. So like, I mean, I remember hearing his name when I was a kid in the 90s. So he's definitely fairly well known. So I think that's probably why that was
it was
so
definitely like
prominent
put a guy's name in oh yeah, I saw this movie, great,
Mm-hmm.
and
Exactly,
it almost makes you think that he directed it, but he directed the second one. I'm like, well, so I don't know, like it's like, okay, you were involved in both of them, give me just give me a little bit of consistency, please.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about it too. It's I mean, as far as I know, I think it's the only superhero film Jet Li has done, and it's which is kind of disappointing because it's I mean, he deserved better than this, I think, and I think if you had a more competent director, then and just like I mean,
oh my God,
I'm not curious. I'm curious about the original comic and how this would compare to it, like you'd said about it. But even if it was something a little bit closer to the comic book, it might have been. I can't imagine it being worse, but you never know.
Oh, could you imagine if Sam Raimi had directed this?
That would be interesting. But I was thinking more like 96. I mean, John Woo would probably be who I'd love to see it direct.
Yeah. I know, I think it was the Darkman connection that made me go, oh my God, could you imagine Raimi doing it?
Mm-hmm.
But Wu would have been a good choice. Probably anyone but Daniel Lee.
Yeah. I mean, no offense meant to Daniel Lee, because this was only like I looked it up. This is only like his second or third movie, but it's just like, I mean, Sui Hark should have taken him aside and said, "Listen, you really got to do some more. You should really ask when you don't know what you're doing here, because it's just like some of this camera work is just very bad. It's terrible." So I think that's, in summation, I would say it's not really worth the time to try and track down this movie. I'm not sure how readily available it is, because I had checked on the streaming services and stuff here to see if it was if I could find the extended version, because all I had was this old DVD version, and I couldn't find anything on any streaming site. So I'm not sure if it's easily available anywhere.
There's a few versions on YouTube. There's one that's an hour 30, one that's an hour 25. But I presume, but they're there for how long, who knows? But as you say, it's probably just easier to just go, show me all the best fight scenes, and you've got 40 minutes of great fights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. That's like watch it for the fight scenes, and that's pretty much it. But I am still curious. At some point, I do want to see how this compares to the original the original language version, because I am curious to see something with see how Jet Li performed in his earlier career before
Yeah.
he kind of evolved into what we mostly know him for these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he hasn't done much of late. He was in the Mummy 3 that we
Yeah.
discussed the other day, and he was also in the Mulan remake. He was the Emperor.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, he hasn't done a great deal. I did hear he was unwell, but I don't know how true that is.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't really heard of anything of him much since the Expendables, when he did, because he was briefly in 2 and 3, but I mostly remembered him from 1, and then I never saw
Mm.
the Mulan remake, so I don't know about that. I've never seen either version of Mulan, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, my daughter was obsessed, and it was just like, all right, I watched the original. Let's watch the remake. And I'm like, do we have to? There's no dragon in it. They go, we are watching it. I went, all right. Which is not, like I said, I love democracies. There's 3 of us who live in the house, and uh, you know, the girls gang up on me.
Hmm. All right.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's all we have to say about Black Mass. So, Brad, why don't
Yeah.
you tell people where they can find your stuff?
Yeah, I've got my blog, Pulpy Brad, and as I said, I'm a Luddite. I don't do any of the other socials. Like Machete, I don't tweet.
Okay. He doesn't text.
Yeah, he did in the second one. He doesn't tweet.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
he did an extended version of that.
It's been a while since I've seen the second one, so I didn't remember that.
Yeah,
But
introducing
anyway,
Carlos Estevez.
okay. But so that does it for this episode. Superherocinephiles.com is the website, Super Cinema Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And remember, you subscribe to our Patreon, you get these episodes a week in advance. By the time you listen to this, our companion show where we talk about the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club, we've got an episode that Brad came on. We talked about Doomsday Clock, its connections to Watchmen, and also kind of like the whole idea of like a sequel to Watchmen, and a lot of fun discussions there. Probably more fun than talking about Black Mask or Black Scorpion like the last time he was on here. So, but you have to pay to get access to that one. But that does it for us. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. If you enjoyed the Superhero Cinephiles, then you'll also love my companion podcast, the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club. All my Patreon subscribers get access to this exclusive podcast where I review superhero comics and graphic novels. Not sure what comics you want to read next or what you should dive into? I've got you covered on that. I'll be doing reviews, recommendations, and also talking to you about useful entry points if you're interested in reading some comics but don't know where you should start. Plus, you'll get access to all episodes of the main show a week before everyone else. On all of this for as little as just $1 a month. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/supercinemapod and you can sign up at any subscription amount to get started. Thanks so much for your support, and please don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.